20 losses now for Arne Slot, which is a Liverpool record for the most losses in one season. Reese, should Arne Slot be sacked after what most people would have thought would have been a title defending season?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it's been a very frustrating season for Liverpool. I think we all expected it to be difficult, particularly from an emotional standpoint, following Jota's death last summer. And I think from there's that back foot, and then there's the added pressure of over 400 million spent on new transfers. Isaac and Verts being, the big two, but of course letting key players go in, for example, Luis Diaz. So I think many people, expected better of Liverpool. I know personally I expect them to finish third this season because I felt that this was much of a transition period. Um, so my answer is no. I don't think Slot should be sacked. I think the Liverpool board are actually right to back their man. And I think they're right to back him because I think you can't always just chop and change when things start to go wrong. Yes, their title winning season was fully deserved, and we could still argue it's a poor league, whatever. Um, but you know, the big names, and they're coming to an end of a period in the sense of, it looks like Alisson's going to leave this summer. Salah's already leaving. They've Andy Robertson's going to go too. Trent went the summer before. Over that sort of period, the one what we knew as Liverpool, particularly under Klopp, are starting to fade away. I think it's only going to be what Van Dijk left probably of that class. I know there's players like Joe Gomez, etc., that's still there, but he's really that sort of stalwart of that era, if we want to call it that. And it's time to embed a new one, and that does take time. Um, and I think it's good to have maybe a year of learning the ropes and how to grow and develop before they can kick on again.
Yes, I get what you're saying with the sort of end of an era, with Klopp's era, really. And that's kind of what I think I said when they won the league. I was like, I'll be interested to see how Slot does next season because he's kind of won it with a Klopp team. They didn't make any signings, did they, really, that summer before when he came in, which was a bit of a shock. But Salah was immense, at, and the whole team sort of, gelled really well because they were familiar with what they were doing, and Slot didn't change anything. So a whole season, well, a whole summer, sorry, window of changes. Diaz going out, the sad passing of Jota, and then the what was it, 481 million euros per transfer market in the summer is the biggest anyone spent from my knowledge. Anyone spent, and then you got Isak who's come in already sort of prepared for the league, injury prone the whole season. Wirtz comes in for massive money, who was seen as sort of one of the biggest stars out there. And it's just, and I think even with like the Frimpong you brought in, Kirkes, you're sort of going, right, these are two decent right back, left backs. Both have been, I think, disappointing. Frimpong's had injuries. Kirkes has just not shown the level that he had at Bournemouth. So it is, the team's changed quite a lot, but I think we all expected better from them. I had them winning the league. I said if you spend that amount of money and you've just won the title, you probably should retain it. It is hard to retain titles, don't get me wrong, it's not an easy job, but it's not even close to that. They're not even in a title race, and that's the biggest thing I have about with Slot is they should be at least competing. Fair enough if you don't win it, but they should be sort of amongst it with, I don't know, 4 or 5 games to go at least. But they were out of it arguably December time mathematically, let alone physically, because and the funny thing is they won the first 5 games. They fell off a cliff massively. And I don't think that's good enough. And Slot's got to be the main person to look at, really.
No, I think that's a fair point. I really rate Slot. I think he's done a good job. But I think, you know, what's worse for Liverpool is it's been a record-breaking season for a lot for the wrong reasons. And I think things have snowballed, and many feel that things haven't been addressed. I would argue that, there were warning signs last season, despite how good Liverpool were in the league. I think City and Arsenal were particularly below standard, because I think their FA Cup performance when they got knocked out by Plymouth was poor. Their League Cup final performance was poor. Um, Champions League, they lost to obviously the resulting winners PSG, so you can't look into that too much. But then I felt that their Community Shield performance was poor. And I thought that was some warning signs there. And then with the money spent, I was skeptical on some of the signings, but again, it was all about embedding them, seeing how they got on. I think the Isaac thing dragged on too long for whatever reasons. Yes, we know he's a great player, but I think he had injury problems even at Newcastle. And I felt it dragged on too much. And I thought sometimes you should have gone for other options. And they also went for Mark Gee, where that didn't work out. So I think the key area that to address they didn't, and I think that was going to start of a snowballing effect. I think yes, they won the first, what was it, 4 games or so, but they were winning them late, which you can't keep doing that. Eventually, you do get caught out. Okay. Um, and it's led to them, over the course of the season, they've lost 12 games, obviously with 1 game to go. We've seen a team concede, the most Liverpool goals in a 38 game season with 52. They've won possession only in the final third, just 4.1 times per league game this season. They've only beaten one team, even in the big six, so to speak, and that was Arsenal in August, and that was a free kick from Szoboszlai. So all these things have added up and added up and added up, and I think it's causing an issue that they're trying to solve. And I think to start that, they keep Slot at the helm. Obviously, it depends how it goes against Brentford in the last game, but it starts with Slot and how he transitions in the summer with the players leaving and the players he's going to bring. Because if Isaac's going to be fit, they need players that are going to give him the ball. Okay, I'll use examples: a Harvey Barnes, like at Newcastle, just giving the ball, and an Anthony Gordon. Will Newcastle do business with Liverpool again? I doubt it very much. But there's where they need to address, and of course, address the defence as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I've heard Liverpool fans say about this sort of like the home record against the sort of big six, because they even said the Arsenal game they won 1-0, but they've not actually. They said there's very little games where they went we dominated a game, whereas under Klopp, there even in this sort of earlier period where he wasn't winning as much, it was we dominated this game and drew. We dominated this game and lost, kind of thing. There was signs of we were the better team, and things dropped off. But this season under Slot, it just hasn't at all. It's sort of like when they played against us. Our record at Anfield is terrible, and it took a Szoboszlai free kick again to get them in front, and you'd kind of gone. They didn't fully deserve that. I wouldn't say they were like I don't think they was massively in it, but I think City were better, not dominant, but better. And then after the goal, we were dominant, and that's where we got the 2 goals, and arguably a third, depending on what way you want to look at it, with Szoboszlai getting sent off for the bit. Um, it's worrying with them, but I think the Plymouth one you sort of mentioned before, that was it happened. It happened with Pep's first FA Cup season. We lost to Wigan away. Sometimes you just don't understand it as a foreign manager coming into the league. So I don't really think it's harsh on that. Um, I would think the thing with Slot is now Alonso's gone to Chelsea, which is sort of basically confirmed. They're not going to be they're not going to be getting anyone else, because that's the only replacement I saw happening. And in my opinion, depending on money and things like that, though, he would have gone to Liverpool rather than Chelsea. And that was the only managerial change that I could see. So for me, I don't think he's going to be sacked despite this poor season. But I think he is on thin ice with Liverpool fans, which then turns to the board. I think the board back him more than the fans at the moment. But I think that could easily change if they lose that. Let's say they lose 4 out of the first 5 games next season. they'll probably be calling for his head, and I think it'd be rightly so because they're probably going to go and spend at least 200 odd million in the summer.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, obviously their finances will determine if they qualify or not. Look, I don't see Bournemouth winning their next game, so I think
I hope you're right
that's
because one of them's City.
I think that will be enough to see him over the line. But I do agree. I think they, they've people are crying, why haven't they gone for Xabi Alonso? But the board have looked at the data. A medium to long term slot fares better. And to be perfectly honest with you, I agree with them. Look, I'm not, I'm not gonna sit here and say Alonso's a bad coach or manager as he's been appointed at Chelsea because he's not. Okay, he won, that unbeaten season with Leverkusen, you know, the cup as well, and then their version of the Community Shield out there, which can't be knocked. It was impressive, and his stats at Real Madrid were very good. Winning 70% of his games, but I still think losing that Europa League final, the manner by Leverkusen did was very poor. And he didn't do a great job at Real Sociedad B. I know that's a different circumstance, but there's that little asterisk there, in my opinion. And I felt that, there is a concern there. And also leaving Real Madrid, why hasn't there been a queue of clubs going for him? And then I just think from the sentimental piece as well, like, everyone wants to go for a former player, but how often does that work out? We could argue that Arteta's doing a good job at Arsenal, of course, but is he that player is he a player in Arsenal folklore? In comparison to what Xabi Alonso was for Liverpool. So I think it's best when you become a coach or a manager is to go to a club or manage clubs you've never played for, because I think you need to strike that other identity. Otherwise, you become too entwined. So I'm happy to back the board on this because I think they are doing the right thing. But it starts by backing Slot and starting to ease out, you know, some players and bringing in more of his own.
Yeah,
But I agree, a bad start. Can't have that.
I think with the Alonso is he's not managed tons and tons of games. Slot's done a lot more. I think Alonso's done 170 odd games. It's actually not a lot considering you're looking at if we're talking fans wise, we're all talking about the top jobs. He got the Real Madrid job, obviously. You'd be looking at I'm not saying any of them are available, but the City job, the Bayern job, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, Arsenal, sort of these top clubs in world football, it is what he would be seen as because of technically one phenomenal season. To lose one final game, I know you said it was a poor performance, but it's probably, one or two poor performances in the whole season, and unfortunately it comes in the final. But that's probably where the question mark is and why they're probably keeping Slot there. And I think it's because also they're probably gone, you know what, we've backed him massively in the summer. We need to keep up with him in a bit. We just need to because we can't just go and chop and change and spend 400 odd million. You can't do that. That's not sustainable. It wouldn't work, and I don't think Liverpool would do it because they didn't actually give Klopp that amount of money in one season. So I don't think it would work in that.
Well, this is it. They've given him a huge war chest here. They back him. Would they have done the same for Klopp eventually? Yeah, I'm sure so. But I don't think Klopp needed that. I think he would have, had the transition. But the way it's worked now is Slot is at this time of the transition. She got to back your man. You can't just keep, chopping and changing and stuff like that. I think it's important to back him. But if he goes, to a poor start, you're right. He's under immediate pressure, and everyone will be saying, "Why didn't you do this earlier?" They can't afford to be 12 points off, even top four by October, November. They can't be fighting a losing battle like that.
Do we also need to consider because Salah's comments because they are very anti-Slot in my opinion. Like you don't say really what you technically mean in press conferences, and he still sounds like he's slating Slot. So to have what I'd consider a Premier League legend and definitely a Liverpool legend in Salah who's playing under him. It's not like it's not like it's where it's Gary Neville and Scholes and people like that who are sitting now as a pundit talking about it. It's someone who's there day to day with Slot. My opinion, does not like him and is saying saying negative things about him. Is that going to sort of, is that, I don't know, it feels like he's lost Salah and Salah's leaving, so that's probably actually a good thing for Slot. But does that mean other players are going to go, well, if a Liverpool legend doesn't like him, should we like him and respect him? Because I think it is a bit of a disrespectful one. I think Rooney came out and said it was selfish. And I kind of do agree. It's not helping Liverpool as a football club, but it could sort of, put writing on the wall, Salah starting it off with comments like he has made.
Yeah, it's not a good look because Salah in his where's he been there now 9 years at the club has been phenomenal. It's been he has deservedly been a legend and he's probably their best player in the Premier League era, one of if not one of the best. And I think whatever he says, he'll have a sway. And I think it's important that the club clamp down on that because you become a bit of a circus. You become, the lunatics run the asylum. I don't think you can have that where players decide who comes and who goes. It's not working for them, so get rid. This isn't the first time Salah has fallen out with Slot. And if I'm not mistaken, he fell out with Klopp as well. And people forget that I don't believe Klopp actually wanted Salah in the first place. He wasn't bothered about the data and stuff, but that's neither here nor there. Um, he's done it before and he's asking for a return of heavy metal football. I understand that Salah thrived in that kind of environment and it's probably not working for him now, but he's also been below par this season. What is it? 26 league games, 7 goals, 6 assists. Not bad, but it's not Salah standard. So, if he turned around and said, look, I've banged in, 20 goals, 12 assists, whatever, other vice versa, maybe you could listen to him a little bit more. But he's not been performing either. And at 33, going to be 34 this summer, it looks like he's going to leave, but apparently he's willing to stay if Slot goes. No, you can't keep him around. Let him go. Bring someone else new in. I like Salah a lot. I think he's a great player, but I think he has been disrespectful. And I think it's easy for Slot to nip this in the bud because he's leaving, but he's got that big decision of does he play Salah in the last game? And I think he shouldn't. I think he should make that point of, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to get your swan song if you behave like this. And I think you do need to reiterate that across the rest of the team. And if that means letting him go, that last eminent of that era, he'll have better man control for himself or man management, whatever you want to call it, for himself. And I think it's inexcusable what he said. I get his frustrations, but he can't be doing that and undermining the coach. I can't imagine someone doing that to Pep. And the Arsenal board
No,
allowed
no,
Arteta to get rid of players.
they wouldn't last. They
What
wouldn't
did I say?
last if they're going to undermine. I agree with Arteta and Pep. If they undermined, they'd be gone.
Yeah,
I think
you don't
I
need to
think we had
take
it with we a perfect example. We had it kind of with Cancelo. He didn't come out publicly and say things, but it was kind of behind the scenes, sort of things were said. And Cancelo was seen as one of the best fullbacks in the world at the time, and Pep did not care. It's his way. Boom, gone. And that's kind of the way it has to be. And especially with Salah coming to the end of his career, it will
yeah.
be like that.
I think I agree. It's got to be, like I said, it doesn't need to be a dictatorship from a manager. It's a stability you need. Because it creates a domino effect if one person can do what he wants, and say what he wants. Not all players are like that, and some players have probably had enough of hearing it. But it needs to a certain authority and say, look, you can't do this. If you want to play for Liverpool Football Club, you play for Liverpool Football Club. You don't tell people who plays or who manages Liverpool Football Club. That's for the board to decide, in reality. I think they need to clamp that down to avoid it becoming a bigger problem over time. Otherwise, it will get worse. And I think Liverpool won't let that happen. I think they've been such a stable club for the dawn of time, in the history they've got. I think they are very good at dealing with this. I think the board are very, very wise and intelligent, and the sporting director, etc. So I think this needs to be nipped in the bud and needs to be now. And you might as well use, even though he's outgoing, your best player.
Okay, right. Just to end this sort of discussion. Reese, sort of two questions. Should Arne Slot be sacked? And then do you think he will be sacked?
No and no. I don't see Bournemouth beating City on Tuesday. Of course, as we're recording, it's Monday. I don't see them beating City, therefore I think they'll be fine. And then I know they'll be fine. And then when it comes to it, they'll even if they win the last game or draw the last game, he'll go off into the summer and have his chance to refresh. I don't see it, and I don't see who they go for if they do let him go. So, you just leave it as that. I think let the circus die down, manage what fans contain it, contain the noise, and I think they've done a very good job at that, and I think they will contain it.
Yeah, I kind of see it as I don't think he should be sacked. I think you give him next season if he is underperforming if it's the similar level this season to next season, then I think it's time to go because he spent too much money to not actually improve on what or compete properly that Liverpool have been doing. Will he be sacked? No. Liverpool board sort of seem to back them sort of a bit longer than other clubs. So I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see it in that way. Right
I
there.
mean,
Oh, go on.
I know I was just going to say, I think it's a testament to the fact that if you're considering a club in crisis and you're in the top five in the league, that's a good crisis to
But
have.
that's only because the new rules have come out, though. If this was a top four one, this would be more concerning. I
Yeah, I
think
suppose,
he is
but
a bit lucky that top five are Champions League football because that Liverpool Villa game would have been absolutely massive. And then Villa have got one game left, which is against City, where they could have taken a point and got Champions League football, and that would have been a bit of a disaster for Liverpool. But because it's top five, it's not as bad.
no, that's fair enough.
Right, there we have it. Let us know what you think. Should Slot be sacked, or is this a bit premature and he deserves to be there next season? As always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.